I know you're a much more reasonable person. So what is your bad point? What are you going to bring to the table as the bad point?
I know that was a great apartheid, I have to say. We could have stayed on that one. Look, I picked Vitality at the showdown. And I just want to preface that I'm aware this was just one series against Astralis, but I feel like the timing, the fashion, and some of the storylines we see transpire through Vitality are really scaring me. Sure. Because I thought that with what they had at Pro League, what they had accomplished at Pro League, moving on to Showdown, with the bootcamp that came in, and then the major round around the corner, you'd feel like the perfect storm was kind of looming, and ZywOo is coming back to form, and his numbers are incredible, and wow, with Spinx and Magiski's playing better. But I thought that in that best of three against Astralis, we saw a whole lot of other sides of Vitality that I hadn't seen in a while. The first one being Spinx actually played one of these worst tournaments he's had.
Oh, don't worry, Mauisnake's desk rose like 2 inches during that match. Got to keep going. It's hate porn if it doesn't keep going. He does that. Listen, everyone has a player they pick. I've got OC, he picks Spinx, whatever. It's all good. Keep going, Maniac.
Yeah, listen. So yeah, I mean, I was really hyped about Spinx joining Vitality, and I was very much aware that we were overrating him as he joined. I knew that he wouldn't deliver as he was delivering in ends. I was very much aware of that. But there was a limit, like a threshold that I thought he wouldn't cross. And I'm starting to worry that he would get into his own head, because the timing of that is the worst possible. Like, it's the actual worst possible to have a game like he did, or an event like he did, where you feel like a player is completely lost, like he's 1 second behind, he's 1 second too quick, he's speaking when he doesn't, just reeks of a lack of confidence. That worries me, and that worries that it gets into his own head, because we're going to go to the major, and if there is any world, any universe in which Vitality actually win the major, it's going to have to go through a strong Spinx performance. So that worries me. That's the one first point. And I don't really care. I don't give a shit that it's just one tournament. It's the one tournament before the major. So that worries me. And the second one, what I saw against Astralis is the ghost of the old stubbornness lead of Apex, where you get completely outplayed and there is no coming back. And you're watching this game and it feels like it's speed Kenny Reeves, right? The boss is going, there's no break, and that's it. There's not going to be any change. And I felt that again against Astralis, which I hadn't in quite a while. And I think the timing of that is very scary, because I have a lot of respect for Glaive, but other people could do to Vitality what they did. Granted, Blamev had a great performance, but just he got out cold. He got out cold. There's no other way to say it. So I got a little bit worried. I thought the showdown was a shoe-in, and they would just confirm what Pro League was for them, move to the major with confidence, great bootcamp, that's it. Turns out it's absolutely not the case. So as a Vitality aficionado, of course, I didn't like what I saw during the showdown, and I hope this would serve as a wake-up call.
Spinx,
go in on him. Get him. Talk to this man.
I'll say for Spinx's flaws, he is really not great in my eyes at playing on certain bomb sites. That's how I'd put it. He is so good at recognizing when he should push against opponents. Like, he is one of the best CT flankers in the game right now. He seems to always know great timings, and what I love about when he does push is that he usually does it at a time that's like, say, 35 seconds left. So he knows if he walk pushes, if he starts dying, he's going to give his team so much info that there's so few options left for the T's that it's actually like a good info play, even if he does die. But what Spinx does so badly, I think, and has been shown recently in the RMR and at Showdown, is that when he's stuck on a bomb site and he can't push because they're just like peppering him with utility, or like there's an exec coming, I don't see him get multi-frags almost ever. I see him, like, if he's in an anchor spot, like I think back silo nuke, he ended up there a couple times, or like he was on the floor. Do you remember that round, Maniac?
Yes,
where, like,
he reloaded. They're reloaded.
Yeah, he reloaded on the ground, and then he just gave up his position on nuke, and then they just ran at him, and it was like, why the fuck did you like reload there and not move? Like, you just gave the whole chase up right there. And I the more I watch Spinx, the more I think when he has to hold angles, or when he has to hold his position down, he will try to use like some really lame a really lame off angle, and it's usually good for one, but it's always traded, and sometimes it's just jiggled outright, or he just gets flashed in the face. And so I don't like, sometimes Spinx looks sick because he's pulling off these sick pushes, and it's really like, it's so magnified when you do see him do well because he's getting all these flank kills, so he looks like a cerebral player. But in terms of sitting down and just defending, I wish they just kind of sometimes had a second Magisk, because he's going to lock that spot down. He's going to get 1 kill, stay alive, get maybe even 2. And just to add on to the stats for Spinx, the Showdown was the worst event Spinx has ever played in his career, where he played more than 1 series, like period. Like if he has a 2 series or more event, the Showdown was the worst of all time for him. So that's a horrible, horrible sign. Because that Astralis lineup wasn't even supposed to be that good, other than 1 player.
No. I mean, I will say, I imagine there was a world where Glaive was like, right, devices coming, right? Fucking better get the old thing going. Time to stop mailing it in, right? I'll write these myself. And there was probably a bit of that going on, I'm sure. And then the other thing I would say is, one, by the way, just as an aside, even Etu Maniac, you also say fucking ZywOo.
Dude,
you also say ZywOo.
You have to realize I started saying ZywOo in French. My pronunciation is a pure French one, but I cannot do that.
All right, fair enough then. Okay, whatever. He's just doing it for you heathens. You plebs out there. It's all
I didn't even know that was still a topic. It
isn't. I just can't believe you do it as well, mate. Come on, of all the people who keep the faith.
Scrawny and Launders told me why they had to give it up, because they were one of the ones trying to push it also, and they said that eventually the games and the conversation about the game that they just casted was always like front page or top comment on Reddit, post-game thread. Would these guys stop saying ZywOo? And it's like the conversation almost became more about ZywOo versus ZywOo as opposed to actually what just transpired in the server.
By the way,
they had to stop.
Spoiler, that shows why those guys never would have made it to the top of tier 1 without Blast / the online era, because they actually don't understand marketing. What you just created there was a literal meme around how you cast only out of everyone in the world that makes you unique and makes you the topic of conversation. Like, spoiler, that's how I've done my whole career. It's the reason why I'm a non-pro who's like fucking in the mix still and all these years later. So whatever, it's all right, guys. You missed that one. It's all good. And you didn't even do that fucking amazing duo name I made for you, Scrawn Dog Mohandillionaire. I think that's, listen, I don't care what you think, Maui. I think it's stupid.
I think it's funny. I think it's so
No,
funny.
because the whole point of it is it's intentionally stupid, isn't it? Like, I'm not thinking it's fire. I just think it's fucking so hilarious. Like, I would ride it
millionaire,
because I just think it's ridiculous, isn't it? Like, I would go with that anyway, but that's why I have a different career. So no, I'm just shocked at Maniac doing that. But what I'll say is this: I agree. Like, I actually think Spinx has shown some key flaws in Vitality that you never saw at Ents, because he was just far and away the best player in the team, and they understood it. Like, that was a team. This is why Snappy's a good IGL. He's not an idiot. Like, he might talk a good game about you're going to play for the team, and all, but if he gets a player like that, and you're not going to have him forever, you just put everything through that fucking player, mate. You're going to ride him as far as you can, and then if you can, you hop off and pivot when you have to. So what I will say is this: one area I've also noticed Spinx does have a flaw, actually, and this is actually something I think is sometimes timely in Vitality, is he's also a player where he knows, unfortunately, that he has really good aim. And I fucking hate young players having really good aim and knowing they have it, because they play off it. Like, somebody you're basically describing now with Mauisnake he's the guy where if he was on, like, it wouldn't be in this particular position now, but let's say he was playing like B-site or Mirage, he would just take the duel every time, and if he gets headshot, the site's open. Like, that's where a Magisk will, like, if he sees you, he's now hiding, he's now making you come in, he's like going on a weird, like, off angle on a smoke, like, he's going to use his brain and then his aim to kill you. Like, someone like Spinx, like, a lot of the young players do this. It's actually one of the flaws, I think, of the online era. They just go for the duel, and in their brain, because they're really good, they go, well, I'm going to win it most times. It's like, most times isn't enough if you want to win every single game, mate. You got to find a way to shore that up. So that is like a flaw, I think, in his game. I'll also say on Maniac's point, by the way, this is why I actually think Vitality, I won't say they're capped by Apex, but I do think he might end up being the factor. It's not Spinx for me. It's Apex actually might be the factor that stops him being the number one team, in my opinion, because he's done a good job as an IGL. At times, maybe even did a very good job. I think the lineup he had last year was a joke that he was working with Kyojin. Svi wasn't even in form. I think that was some amazing shit he did on LAN to the performances, win the IM, etc. How far they were able to make it in certain tournaments. The problem is this: unless you're like a truly all-time great IGL who's going to go down in history, right? It is hard to be consistently number one. Like, that's one of the factors. Almost all the great number one teams had that IGL. They had Zeus, they had fucking Pronax and Glaive and all these guys. So the problem I see is this: in teams, a lot of teams do have like the character of their in-game leader. It's why the Karrakin teams would sort of choke in the way that a lot of his teams would, even if it's totally different players. So what I would say is this: I think actually the strength of Apex as both an entry player and as an IGL is exactly that he's an intuitive player. He just plays on what he feels is right in the moment. And what I love, and this is brilliant for an entry player, is he's super decisive. He'll make a decision in 0.1 seconds and just do it. Whereas a lot of other players dick around and that costs you time and you don't make the right decision and you're trying to calculate so much that at the end there isn't a right decision. You've let all the opportunity go. He isn't that guy. And I always thought the reason why he endured way longer than the other pure entries is because he is stubborn. Like his whole thing was like, I'm just going to run in. And even if it's literally, I've also, this is a big strength as an entry. Even if I know it is literally ZywOo off in the past or like fucking, let's say it was like simple around the corner. Other players do fucking peak simple different because they know, it's fucking simple. It's probably good. See, Apex doesn't. He'll just run around. He's known from his whole career. I've been taught up by all the great players. Like, what you do if you're the entry is, it's not about me winning against this guy. I've just got to get my position, take my space, be the first person and get the info, maybe get a shot if I can. So he'll just do it anyway. The problem with that is, that isn't the best mindset for an IGL. For an IGL, that's what's going to make your team streaky, like an entry fragger is streaky. And it means some days, by the way, when you're reading the game perfectly, you're going to fucking own people. You're going to look so sick that we'll probably all overhype you. But there's going to be that day as well where you are the guy who the analogy would be like on a nuke game, you just called like 9 standard outside pushes on fucking yard over and over and over again. And then the team was like, well, we read that about 5 rounds ago. So throw the nades early, like you're just going to go into that. So I do think as an IGL, if you're going to be stubborn, you have to be like the absolute best IGL. You have to be like the super genius where you just are always right. And there's obviously only 1 or 2 people ever have that status. And I don't put Apex in that category. So that's one thing. What do you think on this, Maniac? Seems like you have some angle.
I was actually thinking about it. Well, first of all, I'm going to give you credit because the example you used against Simple, Apex actually told me that verbatim. He said, people are afraid of Simple. The only reason I can kill him is because I'm not. So I'll give you credit on that one. You were right on the money.
Okay.
But no, listen, what you refer to as his stubbornness and decisiveness as an IGL, I do think he has that. And that's also why sometimes Vitality can have such powerful T-sides, because whenever he feels like there's a weakness and he knows like he can kind of see the plan happening, it's going to be real fast and probably too fast for his opponents to catch up. The problem is you have to have the other side of the equation if you want to be complete. And I think a good example of that is Kerrigan. I think that Kerrigan both has the ability to play super fast, decisive, easy first-degree Counter-Strike whenever he feels like that's the case, and that's going to win them and that's going to net them some rounds. Because I think something that is undervalued by people of the community in general is how important it is for an IGL to win easy rounds during a game. Because it's really hard to just hit your head against the wall for 15 rounds straight on the T side where you have to figure out what the hell is going on. If you can have some simple rounds that work, the mental charge you have on yourself is way lower, then you can also focus on your aim, because that's a part of the IGL that's also important. Now, Apex got that. What he still needs to figure out, and I don't know if it's only his responsibility, it's mainly his responsibility, but it has to be like a systemic thing, that there is sort of a on-off switch or like an ejectable seat that can be activated whenever they're going right into the wall. And I think they didn't use enough tactical timeouts during Showdown, for example, which is literally the item, the function that's here for you to redevise a plan or reschedule however you want to play. That's why you use timeouts, because you feel like the game is running without you, you're not on the music, so you're going to change. They didn't use that enough. So he has to figure out a way to pull all the stops and rethink a game, which I think currently is probably one of his biggest flaws as an IGL. And that if I'm Vitality, if I'm the head of Vitality, that's something that I would definitely put a lot of time and effort into helping him develop, because that would make a world of difference for Vitality.
Sure. I would even say, by the way, that it's not actually like a knock against Apex directly. As I say, remember on LAN, he's been doing this job for like 1 year. Like a little bit more than 1 year. Like there's a reason those other guys are all like, all those names are like 30 years old now and have been in the game like 10 years IGLing. Like that's like the masterclass thing. Like, yeah, a lot of people who just do IGL initially, they might be decent, but yeah. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.